yeah, two more. We need two more.
Yes.
Do you want to put this on then?
You announce when we're. Okay,
All right, let's call the meeting to order for the Warrick County Economic Development Advisory Council. With regards to the minutes, pending a few arrivals, we will defer that to later in the meeting. We'll move right to new business.
okay. We'll skip financials and come back. New business. So the first piece of new business that I want to bring up to the board is that you will see some new formats on our agendas. And then there were some links in the update email for following some new rules for recording our meetings and posting minutes and agendas, and you have to list board members' names and terms and who appointed them. So you'll see everyone's name on the new agenda format there. And then you can look at the EDAC and RDC pages on the website to again see board information, who appointed them. You can figure out when your own term ends. And then also people can see meeting dates, and we're gonna post agendas and minutes there as well. So any questions on that? Okay, moving on. Really quickly, we went to county council this month at the county council meeting for abatement compliance. We had 8 active abatements. All of them passed, were approved 7-0. They were all in compliance with those abatements. That's really the only change from last month. Any questions here on our abatements? Okay. We've been joined online by Ron Bacon. Perfect. Okay, EDC board update. If you were here early, you saw Steve Smith and I taking our oaths. The EDC board, just to let this board know, is another economic development board that the county has. So it's not EDAC, it's not RDC, it's the EDC, which is the Economic Development Commission. It is a board that's been in place since like the 70s, but hasn't been used very much in the last 20 or so years. The main goal is to advise and work on financial funding for specific projects and economic development, and also pollution control. One of the last couple times it was used was in 2006 with Sigico, when they were doing some pollution control out at the power plant. And then the last time it was used was in 2018 for Heritage Woods as kind of a pass-through organization to get some tax-free bonds on that facility because of the services that they provide. We have some potential opportunities, talked about economic or developer purchase bonds. They would be used in that mechanism as well. So we've just gone to the commissioners this month to get everyone appointed, taking an oath, and we're kind of just getting this board up to speed and dotting the i's and crossing the t's. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay. The real thing that I want to talk about at this meeting today is some park project support for Boonville and for Elberfeld. And I'm going to show some pictures and some other stuff. These are not our projects, county economic development. I'm asking this board for feedback on supporting these projects. We've done this in the past, just to point out to this board, we've provided funding like to Linville for the Tecumseh Trail. They take ownership, they operate it, they maintain it. We've provided funding to Newburgh to extend the Rivertown Trail. We are providing funding right now to the Ohio Township Park, but it's not a county park like Freedman. Township is going to staff, maintain, upkeep, and own that. But these are all, in my opinion, really good community assets that our residents will benefit from. And so we have a couple moving forward that I think that we should support with edit dollars. So the very first one you're going to see is some renderings from the Boonville Pool project. And I'm going to say that Boonville they're calling it Year of the Parks. So they're already making updates at City Park, which is where the splash pad is. They're pouring and updating the basketball court there and the playground. Splash pad is updated already. They're doing some stuff at Brackenridge Park as well. So this is one piece of this update. You'll see like an Olympic sized pool, a zero entry walk-in, some splash pad features, some water slide features, a new pool building with concessions and rooms and stuff along those lines. And then also, if you look at the top left picture, there is an option for a splash pad there and updating a building that is just to the, it's called that west of the pickleball facility. So that they have some party rooms and rental space, kind of like we see at the Newburgh splash pad, which is used heavily. We have here at this park with shelters and the classrooms here for birthday parties, so that you can have a family event at this facility. Here's a couple more just quick renderings. This is that outside part next to the pickleball courts. To add that,
Where's the highway?
so if we go back, the highway on the big picture is on the south side of that picture. So you see the big picture in the top left, the highway is at the bottom there.
That building in the corner right is Tasty Trees.
And then the building up
Making
here,
sure it wasn't gone. See, that was my number one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
was
then-
out. I was out.
the building up
Yeah.
here is Studio B.
Studio B. Okay, yeah.
Would it still remain?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And so. That's we're gonna talk dollars and cents here in a second, but that's kind of the Boonville Aquatic Facility. I will,
a full 50-meter pool.
it's an Olympic sized pool, yes,
Was it
that
the
they can
only
host
public
events.
pool in the county then?
So that's the next point. It'd be the only public pool in the county, centrally located. And when we did the parks 5-year master plan for the county, the number one item that was requested was a pool. And so, just like those other upgrades that we talked about, trails, the Ohio Township Park, or and all those features over there. This is something that definitely is gonna be a county amenity.
Would they update that Studio B building?
So
This whole revamping that area?
I don't know, Courtney, and again, because it's not our project.
Yeah.
I've been in a couple of update meetings on it, but I haven't asked that question. Here's a couple of updates on their other parks. You'll see Brackenridge Park, which is in the top left. They're making upgrades there as well with equipment and a walking trail and green space and a basketball court and some other pieces. And then the 3 other pictures are the upgrades that are happening at City Lake. And those are all either done or in the works as we speak. So one more step further. They are doing this, this project, this is just the pool project, this isn't City Lake, this isn't Brackenridge Park. And you can see that project, where that project comes in, the pool piece only is about $17 million. There are some alternates, including that splash pad and redoing the party room and classroom building for rentals, and some other stuff that just what we saw on this project here comes up to about $20 million. That doesn't include several million additional dollars that they're putting into the other parks. I like, obviously, I'm a fan of Parks and Trails. I think that updating all of these parks is a game changer for the city of Boonville, for the neighborhoods, for the families, for the parents. You think about if you live a couple blocks from a new park improvement that has features that people are looking for and need. And so, I guess what I wanna just talk about, and this would be edit dollars. The plan would be for it to go to September County Council to ask for funding. My opinion off the top of my head, they are at the point that they are not gonna be able to complete all of this work without some additional funding. With edit dollars, we supported the Ohio Township Park with $500,000. I would make the same request. We're supportive of $500,000. Obviously, we get into an agreement for those $500,000. But if you haven't been by Ohio Township Park, they haven't drawn a single dollar yet because our dollars were the last dollars in. We come up with an agreement on what's gonna be built and the size and the scope and, what has to happen. And so even though you see the playground at Ohio Township Park going in and some of that site work going in, you know, we've made that deal that our dollars were the last dollars in, and so. If approved, we get into an agreement before we release and put some parameters on what our support is, but. I guess I'll ask for questions or thoughts or feedback.
Do they maintain it long term?
They have a plan to do so, yes. But again, I'm not in those specific meetings. All sustainability on any kind of project is a good question.
Is this a bonded project? That's a lot of money.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. The big chunk of it is,
Big chunk.
yes.
Two of my kids were swimmers when, a few years back, since they're a little bit older now, but. We didn't have any 50-meter pools that were outside in this vicinity, so we went to, I think Vincent's was the closest one. So if it was outdoor season during the summertime, you always had to drive to Vincent's, Indianapolis, somewhere else.
And they are looking that they could host to bring people into Warrick County. Sure. For those features, outside of it just being a, you know, for the community as well.
And those kind of swim meets would bring a couple hundred people and 300 or 400 parents and grandparents and all that other stuff, so you get a nice little boost from that.
No ice cream on that day.
Yeah.
Just saying.
It's all about that.
Now, did they apply for a grant when they were, was it ready?
So they are, that's another nice piece, they are in the Ready portal.
Okay.
And that for Ready to, this is a public project, but for Ready to award dollars, they would wanna see regional public dollars going in. Ready's a kind of a matching program, so it is a good question that our dollars could unlock. Doubling those dollars basically, or more, that could go into this project, providing them even more funding.
And is there not another grant that they're applying for?
So I do not know about that.
Okay.
I know that they have been very active in applying for grants across Boonville for projects, but again, because it's not our project.
Do you know how much they have, like, to start this?
So. My opinion is that I think they can get the pool project going without any of the additional bells and whistles. And I'm not sure what that means for Brackenridge Park or some of these other community parks. At a certain point, they're at the point where they have to pick and choose because of gap in funding.
Yeah, a park tax or something in place right now that fund stuff like this.
I do not know her.
That'd be, yes, for something like that.
It's not totally, I just wanna say this out loud, it's not totally apples to apples. What Boonville's capacity to do in a project like this in Ohio Township's capacity to do. And that's not that I'm against doing that, but the ask from Ohio Township was more meaningful than the ask here. Because of their ability to maneuver financially in the public sector.
Okay,
That's just my opinion.
so
Yeah,
again,
I think there's valid questions like what does the project's finances look like? Where do we fit in the staff,
yep,
the capital staff?
I can get all,
Did they
yeah.
make a request?
yes,
Okay.
I mean, would you want to be last dollars in case they have trouble getting across the finish line or something like that?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's the way we've kind of negotiated in the past.
and also leverage, and also, I'm sorry,
No, you go ahead.
and also, you know, I feel way better about it if they could leverage us into more, you know what I mean, like,
Right.
that makes a difference to me too. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So the timing on this would be to go to the September council. Meeting, we would have our August meeting still here to provide some more answers on the questions that came up. I guess for today, the general feedback is. To continue to proceed forward with the possibility of providing funding, is that the overall?
I think it's a great project.
Yeah,
I would just
yeah,
like to
too.
see more of their financial, like, security, I guess, so.
Okay.
Steve, I think when we did this before for Ohio Township, you had a really good handle on what their capital stack looked like. And I think you're not as, like, you're just not in the loop here.
Correct.
But we can
It
get,
was we can get that, and it was a very similar situation, is that they can get that park done,
yeah,
they may just not have. Amenity A, B, or C.
Yeah.
Right.
If additional funds didn't happen.
okay.
And so again, I think my opinion is we wanna get to the best asset for our community.
And for that project, we provided funding from EDAC and from RDC, so it ended up being $1 billion that we provided.
And I like supporting it, I just would like to see a little more like,
Yep,
hey, we have this for this and help,
correct.
you know.
I mean, I can add, I've sat at the table with our engineers and their engineers on all of these projects, and they do have a good path forward. So I mean, I would appreciate to see the financials from this side, how we're asking, but I do believe that they've got a good handle on moving forward with the project.
Is it a center point interesting project or?
I mean,
Your
our
family.
teams have to do a lot of work to get these parks where they want them to be with
Okay.
undergrounding and moving and relocating. I mean,
Okay,
there's a lot to it. So our engineers have been working on it for some time.
okay,
We don't have a quorum to vote anyway.
we do.
So,
Correct.
yeah, so,
Yeah, so I was just looking
Perfect,
for
perfect.
conversation and
Yeah.
feedback.
yeah, I think,
And at the end of the day, you guys told me to get more information,
Yeah,
which
that's right.
we can do that.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we'll have. I mean,
yeah, and I think the flavor of this is we're all supportive, so that's all. good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like an excellent
Yeah.
project to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Second project. We've talked about this in here before, but trying to get this pocket park done in Elberfeld. There's a piece of property that was donated by Heritage Federal Credit Union to the town. It is almost to the T, the exact size of Johnson Park on the square in Boonville. And they're looking at this being an asset to the community, helping on kind of their thoughts for long-term Main Street here, which is only a couple of blocks in Elberfeld. And if we look at, Johnson Park, the amount of events and activities and kids taking school pictures and decorating for the holidays and all of those things that bring some community pride together. It's centrally located in town. And this was one of two projects that we helped apply for a year ago through Indiana University. They have a rural development grant, which is no money, but is help to design and support things. We got the grant for Elberfeld, and we got the grant for Linville. And so the grant for Elberfeld had students and faculty working on getting feedback from the community of what they want and how they would design this park and the flow and the costs. And what they heard was, they wanted wooden material that looked at kind of speaks rural to them, and they wanted a focal point pine tree at the corner of the park for decorating and for holidays and some different amenities. They did a few of these designs that you see right here. And then the small town team took what the IU team came up with and kind of tweaked that to say, maybe we don't need this. They got some more town feedback and came up with a design similar, walking paths and seating areas and trees and a mural on the wall and a stage little area for community events. And they reorganized the seating area and some other things. And so IU put the total cost of this project as a little over $200,000. With cutting some of the things out and with getting some stuff donated, the group in Elberfeld believes this thing can get closer to about $150,000. Elberfeld just started a nonprofit called Elevate Elberfeld. And having a nonprofit is good because 501c3s can support the community differently than a municipality can and apply for different grants and funding. Through Warrick Trails, there are some dollars to get them started through the community foundations and funding that Warrick Trails with our interest to make connections and bring green space and connectivity to communities. For this project, I'd like to make a request to county council for $50,000 to $75,000. I think there are some other foundations that they can get some money for, but having a start, so we wouldn't give them dollars until there's a path forward. But they need to be able to say, we have some dollars from the community, a town would put in some money, we have these community foundation dollars. We need those to show whoever we're asking that, hey, if you fund this thing for 50 grand or 40 grand or that closes the funding gap and we can proceed. We're excited about this project. I think it's a nice piece. It's obviously a different size or scale to things like you have Township Park or the Boonville Pool project. But I think our smaller communities need quality of place projects as well. They're just sized and they look a little differently. So same question to our group about just thoughts on supporting them. Again, it would be written up in a way that they're not accessing those dollars until it's fully funded and until there's a path forward. But here, these dollars will help them go out and close that funding gap, that these are at least committed. And then put some skin in the game for them to close that gap. We got any questions or feedback or?
Would you make it a situation where we came in after they got to a certain level of private commitment or private plus town public commitment? Or
Yeah, they would
be your
be,
recommendation?
Paul, just as next, you know, if we gave them 75 and they already have 25.
Yeah,
They need to close that gap.
yeah,
Until we would, there's no reason to give them really $1
right.
until.
And they don't have $1 today, is that fair?
We've got $25,000 commitment through Warrick Trails, then through the community foundation.
Okay, okay.
To get them
I
started.
got you. Yeah.
Elberfeld is looking to put, yes, Elberfeld is looking, they're working on their budget right now for next year. As is the county and.
But if we make a
municipalities.
commitment in writing, that also makes them more attractive
Yeah.
for other grant.
It certainly does.
So, yeah, I mean, that's an opportunity.
It's not like the 50 or 75 has to go done right away
Right,
again. It's more, we
Yeah.
have this commitment.
I feel like we're generous, but very protective of our dollars, and I think that's the way to be, is we want them to make things happen, but until things are viable. We're not putting our dollars to them.
And we feel like they have the ability to maintain and keep it
Yes.
up and all this stuff.
I like the fact that they're doing what Boonville did, the nonprofit.
Yep,
That's gonna make a huge
Mhm.
difference, how this goes and who takes care of it. And
I think so.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've been involved with it for over a year now, so.
Yeah, that slide on Boonville, the naming rights alone were. Didn't you show the
The
name?
Johnson Farm.
Yeah,
Johnson,
Yeah,
somebody, that was a
The
generous
foundation that donated, yep,
foundation, yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, that opportunity exists here too, again,
100%.
but so you need, yeah, making them, work it on their side to make sure that,
We want everyone to have skin in the game.
that's right, that's right.
100%.
Yeah, I love it, this is great.
Okay, so again, this won't go to council until September. It gives them some more time to try to get some additional funding. To close that gap. But it's a project that I think is important for Northern Warrick County.
Paul, are you thinking Perry Park or?
No, 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 but I do have ground in Anderson Township pretty close by, so I mean, I'm almost an Elberfelder.
Okay,
Part-time.
old business. Okay, couple of just really quick updates for everybody. We did apply, speaking of Northern Warrick County, we applied to this Rural Empowerment and Development Program. It is through Okra and Ball State. We will not know if Warrick County, they're only gonna pick 2 counties out of 91 counties in Indiana. So, we're hopeful. I think we put in a good application. And I do wanna say it's really going to help the municipalities. And every single municipality in Warrick County agreed to participate and found value in it. So we would be able to, and that enhances our application as well, that we're not doing it for just one town. We'll find out in August, and then if that moves forward, it's capacity building, kind of to help towns figure out, let's use Elberfeld's example. Hey, you might wanna get a nonprofit started. Here's some ways you can get funding. Let's help you prioritize. Is the park your number 1 priority? Is streetlights your number 1 priority? And prioritize stuff, timeline stuff, and get them done. So we're hoping for that, but we will see. Any questions on that?
when will you hear that?
August.
August, okay.
Yeah, they didn't give a specific date. They just said, we received your application.
This program applies to every municipal function in the county, or how does
It-
it get assigned?
It will apply each municipality, so you can't. You have to be less than 50,000 people, so it doesn't really even apply to the county. But all of our towns
Yes,
check that bucket.
gotcha,
And so we've contacted the leadership in each community,
yeah,
and every single community in Warrick County said, we'd love to participate and get some support. This is similar to that IU grant that Linville and Elberfeld received. It's not money, it's not a grant, here's a check. It is,
no,
we're gonna put time, effort, and people into helping you guys get organized and get forward.
yeah, that's great. It's a consulting function.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes some of the hardest things for towns and projects to spend money. They can spend money on the actual project, but it's harder to get that money before there is a project spent. Any other questions? Speaking of rural, we are still working, this goes into that red grant. We have been in touch with all of, Tennyson, Elberfeld, Linville, trying to get some of those project lists organized. I'm really trying to get my footing in Tennyson. I had some conversations there about some things that they would like to see and get done. We've talked a little bit about Elberfeld and Linville, but just don't want the county to forget about Tennyson. So we are trying to get our bearings there on, and if we get that grant, I think it will really help trying to prioritize some stuff for the town of Tennyson. And then we talked about parks projects, but there are a bunch of other parks projects in the works. Right now, we just talked about the Elberfeld Pocket Park and then the Boonville project. Some last additional items.
Where does that stand for the Scales Lake picture that you got up there for the entry?
So
Forget what you call that.
The gatehouse?
Entry gatehouse, where's that stand?
the parks, that was part of a grant that the Parks Department applied for through the DNR that we did not get. And so now the Parks Department is looking at doing that, changing maybe the scale of that a little bit. And looking at working with some funds that they have, potentially some support from economic development to get that project done in-house.
Okay.
So they are kind of reorganizing the scope of that project. All right, my video doesn't want to play in this format. So let's do this. Oh, I know why. Let's do this. We're gonna switch it. Let's see if we can play this format. I just wanted to show you guys that we didn't have this last time. Sorry, roll code 4 is getting its final certifications and starting to kick out product. This is that big building in front of Kaiser Aluminum. This will give you kind of the size and the scope and the scale of that project, which was a couple $100 million. So
Oh, it's not on, that's not buying it.
it's not.
Sounds great, though.
It does, it looks great here.
Or jazz.
Why
It's
is
because it won't connect, as you're in a different program or all.
let's see, how did we screw us up here? Hmm,
Well,
let's try one more time.
We had that.
That was the wrong one, though.
Oh.
Let's try this. Let's see if this works.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
Look at that, I was about to unplug and plug it back in. That was the end of my technology. And I believe the reason you see the gold on that product, you can see it goes up and down 2 stories and how big this space is. That was a coated project that goes on the inside of, like, I don't know if it was cat food or tuna or something, when you see that different color on the inside. But it is a big 2-story line that goes the length of that entire building over there. Okay,
So
so,
most of the investment ended up being personal property, right?
yes.
All the equipment.
Some upcoming dates, just to let you guys know, I know it's hot and it was raining today a little bit, but the county fair is going on, which is always a fantastic opportunity this week. If you can get out there, you will definitely bump into some familiar faces. There's some other activities going on as far as the trails are concerned. Next Friday, we are having a ribbon cutting on the AMAX improvements, which is the Nevins Trailhead, and then officially opening the trail between Van and AMAX and Lincoln, connecting AMAX. So that's at 11:30 next week. It was in the update email, I believe. We are waiting on a date. We're gonna have a ribbon cutting at EDAC Supply up in the North Warwick Industrial Park. And then I did talk about in the update email, there is a Lloyd for All. There's Lloyd for You, which is all the construction. There is a Lloyd for All meeting, which is
Does that
really,
include Warrick County?
it includes Epworth. And I've already had a conversation about it, but it's about making the Lloyd Expressway more multimodal, which means pedestrian and bike access. And so if you live here in Warwick County, it is a real challenge to get across, we'll call State 66. And this study only goes to Epworth, but I told the MPO and NDOT, we need to look at it as Warwick County needs a safe crossing, whether it's at Epworth, which may be the most challenging, or at Grimm, which I think makes more sense, or at Livert, or somewhere, because of all the stuff in Newburgh and the Rivertown Trail and all the access, and now all the stuff going on the north side, there's not really a way to get across. I will not be able to make this meeting due to conflict. I have kind of sent out something to multiple people to give my opinion, but if anyone does want to go, it's at Harrison High School. It starts at 5:30. So. Any
I'm gonna
comment?
try and attend, so just let me
Okay.
know any comments. Were they open to
I will
the
forward you,
extension of grant?
I will forward you that email. I
Okay,
mean, and we have
I
talked
think I
about,
got the email.
we have talked about the crossing at Grimm, and how that makes sense.
Okay.
So I just want that part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Is that we need connectivity in Warwick County as well, whether we're calling it the Lloyd or 66.
So the best place to go across from a safety standpoint.
I think it's the best place to go across from a connectivity standpoint, the fact that we have the wellness trail. To get people onto, and then Epworth is being improved all the way down to 662.
Right.
If we would get, you either can go Grimm to Lincoln, or if we get Orthopedic Drive to blow through at some point, we would put that connectivity on there. And that would be a safe path to get all the way down, and then you can get either on the Rivertown Trail or go on the Covert Road Diet and go into Vanderburgh County and Evans. So that's my opinion. Okay, any other board business?
We had e-package supply, they said they're.
No,
been cutting that.
no, I've got a picture in the redevelopment commission, they got a big mess with the sewer extension. They wanna wait till they get that cleaned up before they have cameras out there and have a ribbon cutting. Okay,
Or will you nudge me next month to get our minutes approved for and financial reports for
we'll put that in the agenda too to improve both months.
you know, I just don't wanna forget.
Yeah.
Plus the financial, right?
So next, everyone understand, next month we'll go through the two approvals that were needed
Yeah.
because we don't have quorum at the time.
All right,
We just had a conversation tonight, we'll have. a-
Understood.
We just gave updates.
yeah. Need a motion,
Motion to adjourn. Second.
adjourned.
Okay.
Order.
Okay,
We have, everybody reviewed the minutes, do you have a motion to approve minutes?
Motion to approve. Steve?
Okay,
Second.
in a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, the minutes from June passes. Okay, financials, Steve?
okay, financials were presented in the packet. Here's the summary of all of our funds, but we're gonna have a discussion, in the update email. I talked about getting our updated TIF reports from Baker Tilly, which came in at 10 o'clock last night. And it's, a 68-page report, and so it's still in a draft form. So I didn't wanna throw all of that up on the screen, but there are some things I pulled out. We will get this out of draft form before next month's meeting, send it to everybody, so that you guys also have time, and we will have a further discussion. However, so what I'm showing you is the financials that we've seen, for each of the 3 TIF districts, Epworth and 61 and Northwest, that you guys have seen month in and month out. But I just wanna highlight a couple of things to be on your radar when it comes to TIF. And this is coming out of the Baker Tilly reports. So this is what you guys have seen. Again, this is draft. But the interesting piece is you will see, let's just look at 2028 up there, and you see the number at $6.9 million. Look at 2028 in the financials that we were planning. You see it at $7.4 million. So I'm gonna talk about some changes to TIF based on applying the new rules in Senate Bill 1 here in Indiana and how that impacts stuff. And so just calling that out, one of the reasons you see revenues going down is because if you look at the highlighted line that's my highlight. Starting next year, all properties in the 2% tax bracket, which is stuff like multifamily apartments, assisted living facilities, and agricultural land, are all going to start to get a percentage off their assessed value. It's going to peak, starts in 26, peaks in 31. At 33% off your assessed value. So what you will see, let's go further than 28, remember it ticks up. See those numbers in parentheses. Those are the numbers that are being knocked off the assessed value in the Epworth TIF. And you can see it capping out at about $56 million a year. And so you start to see those numbers starting to go down. Like I said, we're gonna get into it next month after we've been able to look at this more than an hour this morning. But I want you guys to understand that. So here's another example. The 2% property bucket is multifamily, it's non-homestead, residential, housing, and ag. And you can see that in 25, there's no standard deduction, 26, 6%. And it caps out, as I said, at 33% in 31. If we just take 3 properties in the Epworth TIF, 2 apartments and a senior living facility, in 2031, when it's capped at 33%, there's gonna be a $23 million deduction in that number. Okay, so I just wanna. That kind of very broad stroke. Does everybody understand that?
Will rates make up for part of that?
So Herb's asking, when assessed value goes down, it puts upward pressure on property tax rates. So property tax rates are gonna go up across everywhere because assessed value is going down, which is what it is. However, they put a section in the law that you can't neutralize that in a TIF area, so we can't capture that. So that's not gonna help us in the TIF.
Okay.
Rates will not help that. let's talk about, and I don't have it pulled up, but I'll talk about something else. So. We just created a couple of additional TIF districts in the county. To support some development like the Dominion or the potential 230 acre housing mixed use development on Epworth. All of that land, those TIFs, when you start a TIF, you do the base assessed value, you lock that in. Then any new development goes into the TIF. So we set the base assessed value. Let's just call it 100 at $100. Now. Let's say that project doesn't start for 2 or 3 years. And that project doesn't start until 2028. That $100 base assessed value. Is gonna get 19% knocked off of it. So right now, that TIF would technically start $19 in the red. There was $100 value, it's gonna start out $19 in the hole. So even if somebody builds, again, we're using round numbers. If they built something that got assessed at $19, and again, we're talking TIFs and we're talking millions of dollars. That would just get us to zero. It's not that we owe anything, but those new TIFs. Depending on when development starts, may start out in the red. Till they get back to square one. So the concept would be, do you? Before that development starts. Do you reauthorize those TIFs, which is a thing, to basically. All we care is we just want to start at zero. So. This group, the redevelopment commission, as some of this gets flushed out, we just need to do some thinking. Because it's putting us. It's putting us into some decisions.
But all of that is vacant land, so the base assessed value is based on vacant farmland, right?
Correct.
But the developers, that's part of the incentive for building though, is the discounted tax rate.
Is that we're gonna get taxes from them or give them an incentive based on.
Right,
yes.
but their lower tax rate is part of the, I mean,
So
you
Herb's,
develop a formula where you present all that to them.
Herb's question is valid, is that some of those TIFs that we created are small. So let's say farm value is at $1,200 and there's 30 acres in there, it's not a giant number.
Mhm.
In the 61 TIF, which is thousands of acres, that is ag, it is a big number. In the north, the county and economic development created the northwest TIF up by Elberfeld. It's a big TIF because they didn't know how 57 and I-69 is gonna develop, but we've only developed 230 acres. So you'll start to see some numbers when we get into this next month. And we'll just need to have some conversations about the impacts and how to make decisions moving forward. Is that? And everybody, municipalities, schools, libraries, everyone's taking a look at how all of these moving pieces are gonna impact revenue. Income, we've talked about it. Income taxes are being redone in 2028. County council will set income tax rates every year starting 2028 forward. Will change the income tax bucket, which is what feeds roads and economic development and public safety in Warrick County. So there's a lot of people still crunching numbers. Does that make sense? We just want to stay on top of it. Any questions with that? Okay. And more to come. So looking back, I just left the other ones instead of going through some of the tweaks and changes from Baker Tilly because we want to understand it more. These were presented. These are the same ones you guys have seen with some of our assumptions for the Northwest and State Road 61 TIFs. So I'll take any questions as we scroll through all of these that you guys have on the financials as presented before we dig in next month into more data and information.
So you're thinking for something like our Northwest TIF that we might pare it back to just the industrial park and maybe a few acres around it?
You would have to reestablish it. There's different ways. I was talking with Emma from Baker Tilly today.
Right.
We're gonna have to have some conversations.
Well, we did that before when we did sports facility in Dominion and pulled them out of.
You pull and carve stuff out.
Right.
Correct. Yep.
Are we done with financial?
Yep,
Okay.
unless there's any questions.
Any questions for financial? Okay, can I have a motion to approve financials.
So moved.
Right, second,
Second,
all right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, financials pass.
Okay, I think Holly sent you some updated, did we send, the last ones just came in here the last couple days. Always happens is we get a couple bills after we've already sent out financials, but we wanna get them done since we only meet once a month. You will see the claims for redevelopment commission for this month. The largest one is the first pay app for the Epworth Point Sports Complex subdivision from Eigner Construction. You will see it there. It was included, I think, in the first round of stuff that was sent out to your way. The total that we are looking at with inclusion of that is $174,175.54.
Might want to speak a little bit more as to the Agner bill and what it covers and things like that, just to give. them a
And
flavor
who
of where
checks?
we're at.
Who checks? I know a big chunk was just mobilization, but is there an engineering firm?
Yes,
So Morley does the first check,
Okay,
but I looked at it too, but
Okay.
Morley does the first check and Morley ends up certifying to us that it's valid.
that
it's
work's
due,
been
all that
done.
Stuff,
Yes.
and then we pay off of that. So for this, it was mobilization and maybe a little bit
It
of
was
dirt moving,
just the front end stuff, yeah,
but mobilization
that.
was the biggest
oh
part.
yeah, it was a big number, just, you know.
150 maybe.
148.5.
Oh,
Above
just
that,
the mobilization. was-
yeah. The bill was 145,000.
Well, that's probably. That's the number less retainage, right?
Yes,
Steve, I see the floodway payments to Morley. Has there been any traction on that?
yeah, you're gonna get an update on that here in new business or in action items. It is getting close. We extended that floodway to cover a little bit, and I'll show you a map, a
Okay,
little
that's
bit
fine.
more area south. Due to a couple of moving pieces.
No other
Have you
questions?
guys seen the Epworth Point work? If I drive up with Epworth Road, they're moving a lot of dirt.
Yeah.
Dirt.
Yeah, it's moving right along.
If no other questions, I motion to approve. Do we have a second?
second,
All those in favor?
Uh,
Opposed, same sign. All right.
Okay, so getting into our action items. We've got a couple of action items here. These are the things that we need to vote on today. First one is to ratify my signature on the sewer agreement. This is with Newburgh Sewer. This was sent out your guys' way as well. This is just the cover page, just as a reminder. This is another one that Herb has looked over. We've made a few tweaks, requests that they change. Newburgh's made those changes. You wanna quickly just explain?
The changes that I asked for, I mean, the primary one was the indemnity language was pretty broad. So I pared our indemnity obligation back. What else was there? It was only 2 or 3 small points.
This is a standard agreement if you are making a sewer extension, that there's a sewer agreement and that Newburgh's named is additionally insured and how all of that works.
No, that was the other change. So the way they had it set up, it would have been us carrying the insurance and we wanted to pass that down to Eigner since they're doing the work. So I modified the language to allow our contractor to be the one that carried the insurance and named them as an additional insured. They were fine with that. Those were the 2 primary points.
Yeah.
How far does that go? Epworth.
How many feet is that in there? Do you have that or?
On.
If not, I need the
Line is.
design piece.
Yeah, I don't think
Does it
that's
go to
gonna be anything.
62 or?
No, it's just on that 22 acre parcel.
Okay.
It's to extend it north along what's becoming the access road, which is Courtside Drive. And it's to make that and put kind of an access point on that and extend that piece. It's not the
All
biggest,
contained
it's not the
within
biggest
4.8
extension in the world.
Yeah. 156,000, I think was the estimated cost for the sewer system.
Total cost.
Yeah.
I have a motion to let Steve.
To ratify.
Steve's
Yeah.
signature on the sewer agreement for Epworth Point.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Steve, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, same sign, okay.
Okay, the second one you'll see right here is a change order that Steve brought up about that floodway study. So the picture you see in red, we were basically taking it from 66 all the way up along Epworth. It goes further than that up to 62. And it's a study to basically set that floodway so we can dictate, you can't build in the floodway. We want people not to build in the floodway because it impacts upstream and downstream flow. The section that's in the purple is where that same ditch comes under 66, goes along Deaconess, and then comes under the highway in a culvert there. What's come up are twofold, is one, Deaconess looking at some expansion in the area. And again, needing to know where that floodway is, but two, NDOT's met with the surveyor here in Warrick County. And wanted Warrick County to do some maintenance and some upkeep on the ditch and the access underneath the interstate. And so both of those kind of hit at the same time. We talked with Morley and said, well, we've already done all this modeling. We can model this all the way down there so that everybody knows what's going on and what is our responsibility and where the floodway is. And it will also assist in the expansion that Deaconess is looking for down in that area. So if you see that cost was $13,000 to extend that. And my opinion is, since we're well in the throes of getting this done, let's get it done where it comes down and leaves that side and goes underneath I-69. And so,
Because Deaconess wants to push that parking lot to the west, right?
they want to get some more parking access and change the road up there for an expansion project that they were doing. So what I'm really looking for is just
Motion to ratify your signature.
to ratify my signature. We want to get this thing kind of, one, put to bed, but two, our goal is to, foster development and make sure that we get it right. And right now, I mean, there is a floodway there, whether it's recorded or not, but recording it will show people what the lines are that they need to color and stay within.
And to give it a little flavor from a recent event, the flooding was in, where was the flooding, Texas, where the other people done?
Yes.
Yeah.
So those buildings were in a floodway. Morley went back and.
Some of those
looked at the one in
buildings were in
Texas,
an established floodway.
But they allowed them to build in the floodway in Texas, so.
So Brad motions to ratify Steve's signature for the floodway study extension. So I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Passes.
The next three are three agreements, or the Baker Tilly agreements. We use Baker Tilly for multiple things. You will see, and these were sent out, engagement letter for the services that they provide. They update that based on their cost and the services that we asked them for. There were three separate ones in here. The engagement letter.
One was an engagement letter, the other two were
Yeah,
scope of business.
I've got it here. So number two was scope of work. The second one that we have up here is for the services they provide for the TIF services. All those services were listed in that report. Some of them are as requested, meaning if we need additional support, pricing and everything is in there. The third one is the approach for, is the scope to work with Project Vivid. And so we've needed them to model different incentives and bonds and tax abatement and work with this industrial project. And so you guys were sent these agreements, happy to answer any questions on them. We've been very happy with Baker Tilly Services, and we need them as that kind of additional eyes and backstop, provide services that aren't our expertise to get the work done that we need.
And we negotiated with them to modify some of the minimum payments that they had in there and change one of them to an hourly bill where we thought their flat fee was a little high. So we got those changes made as well.
No one has any questions, I'll motion to ratify Steve's signature for the Baker Tilly engagement letter and 2 scopes of work.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay.
Okay. Epworth TIF. So the biggest piece that we've been talking about for months is the expansion and some updates to the sewer system for the growth and capacity that is there. The update that I gave you guys in the update email was twofold. One is we finally had a meeting that we were asking for a while. We got in that meeting and it was the town and one of the town council members and the town manager and their engineering team and their attorney and Morley and Powers Engineering, who we've hired to look at some of their studies, and myself and Herb. And at times, as we kind of predicted, that was a contentious meeting. We're trying to figure out 3 things. What is the size of the actual problem? As far as where are we at with capacity, how much capacity is left? We have to kind of come to an agreement on what the size of the problem is before we can come to the agreement on what the size of the solution is. Once we come to the size of the solution, then we can talk about how to get it done financially. The most positive thing that came out of that meeting was to let both sides' engineering teams get together and try to come up with agreement on the size of the problem. And I will say I'm not a sewer engineer or designer when it comes to peaking factors and flow rates and sunken manholes and solutions and pipe sizing. That is not my expertise. And so what really led out of that meeting, after not much progress, was let's get the engineering teams together, have a meeting. That meeting happened this morning. We sent Commonwealth and Newburgh a list of questions ahead of time. That meeting went an hour and a half, and they didn't make it off of the first page of questions. It was a positive meeting, but they set a second meeting, not next week due to scheduling conflicts, but the week after that, to try to get through that list of questions. And I think that, again, before any recommendation can be made, we need to understand the size and scope and how much development any upgrades will get us. And that's about it. So not a lot of stuff to update, but some progress. And I think at least we're going in the right direction to check off the first piece before we can move to the second piece. And then we can get to the third piece if there is any cost sharing for a solution. Any questions?
Lots of them, but probably nothing we can answer today.
Okay.
Until they give us their.
Okay. Okay, North Warrick TIF. So we talked about that ribbon cutting for package supply and EDAC meeting. That's a recent picture of them digging up for the sewer line out in front of that building. So their employees can't use the front parking lot. They're all parked on the side. And package supply and Paul would like to get a ribbon cutting done, but kind of want to clean up the front door first. Look for that happening in August.
My picture,
That is your, do you want a photo credit?
top one's mine.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Good job.
Phoenix had a groundbreaking and that is all moving forward. That was a nice.
Those pictures.
Holly went.
Great job, Holly. Great job.
But both good updates. They're operating out of that warehouse up there. Phoenix is super happy. I should have used the picture of what their third building is gonna look like. It's actually gonna be their headquarter building. It's nice, has a nice front on it, and has some progress.
They're starting to put the road in for Phoenix, so they'll have a road on the.
They need a new
west
shared drive on the west side of that,
Their property.
which is gonna share with the remaining property that we have west of them, to access their building, because their third building is behind building 1 and building 2. They're kind of continuing to build their campus back there. Shell activity. There's been a lot of activity in the Shell building. We toured it with a cardboard box manufacturing company. Was that just yesterday? Yesterday. That was really exciting. They have locations in a couple of places here in Indiana, but nothing down south. They have customers here in the tri-state area, which is driving that. They toured the Shell building and then they went with Woodward and toured basically a finished building that Woodward has in the Vandenberg Industrial Park, so they can see it in its Shell unfinished model. And then they went into a different building to see what it could look like if it was finished out. Took a lot of pictures, asked a lot of questions. Was a lot of excitement in that visit. We will see where that goes. There was another call at the end of last week for somebody that is in the warehousing business that needs to buy a building or is looking to buy a building because of 1031 exchange for some land that they sold and they'd like to invest it. They toured that building last week and that person then called me to talk about the county and workforce and some other things. Looks like they are going to buy a building. They were looking at a much larger southern Indiana tri-state area, so they've looked at several buildings. But it looks like they are going to probably buy a building. And then you can see all of those projects there have had touches on and off over the last month or two. So a lot of activity, some good information, but that's what's going on with the Shell building out there.
There's more activity by far in North Warrick Industrial Park than we've ever had.
All at one
By times 10.
at one time. And then we'll bring it to Project Vivid. I will explain, talking to Herb's point about activity. Had another call with an individual that is interested in lot A and B down at the south there. About what it would take if they would build some smaller warehousing space that they would lease out to people. So think about 40,000 square foot building that's divided in half or into thirds that they would lease to some other companies. That's opposite of Phoenix, and they wanted to know what that would look like for them to do that kind of a project. So that came up in the last week as well. So activity in all these buildings. Project Vivid is still moving forward. There were some calls today that I was not sitting in on with utilities on sewer and water. That project we've talked about, developer purchase bonds. It looks like, just to update this board, that project would prefer going the tax abatement route for internal company reasons. Again, we're happy to go either way. There are some sewer and water upgrades that are gonna be needed to take place. So they're trying to wrap their heads around that. That project is still moving forward in an extremely positive way. We're doing what we can, and it's kind of in their court.
Assuming that if it happens, A and B is all that's left in the park, right?
Correct.
Which eliminates A and B,
What?
eliminates A and B.
No,
No.
and B is somebody else is interested in, but.
No, that wouldn't really help Project Vivid because it's not really continuous.
Okay.
They want kind of. With this advanced manufacturing facility, they need to be all kind of on a single parcel.
Their first phase is all in the north 50% of that green.
Would all be
area
above the
anyway.
word industrial on that picture. Their first phase of what you're seeing up there in the bullet points is all their first phase. Any questions out there? Just a lot of activity and we'll just keep moving forward. But it's positive. Seeing no questions, I'll move forward. Just an update on the grants that were provided. The checks went out and were cut from the county to go to the Pathway School and Yankeetown Fire. Remember, that was a redevelopment commission grant of $90,000 for Yankeetown Fire to buy that needed piece, that vehicle and piece of equipment for them to serve that area of the community. And then a not to exceed $140,000 for the Pathway School to move forward on their construction pathway up there and purchase some equipments. Abby will let us know when that's received. And
Did you cut it for the full amount and they'll
Correct.
credit back to us, you end up being lower?
Correct. That's,
We actually already ordered and have equipment on site.
so that's
Excellent.
Yeah,
fantastic.
so just as
Perfect.
soon as we get kids using it and on it and all of that, then I'll throw some pictures your way and.
Perfect.
And I know we have some obligations, of course, getting you
Following up.
things and
Yep.
that sort of thing, but ordered on site and.
And once
excited to
we,
use.
once we sign that grant, the Yankee Town moved forward with getting that vehicle as well, so they're down that path. And I think, you know, quick impact on the community for those two projects. So,
Steve was rethinking his marketing comments he made last time, so he's got a couple small pictures that he thinks he might want you guys to put on the side of that equipment.
no. Okay, so we worked on those two projects right there that were in red. We are getting some information to talk about a few additional projects out of the 61 TIF. Hopefully next month we'll have some actual details and budgets so that you guys can make some decisions if we want to move some additional projects forward. Other than that, I'll ask if there's any board business that we want to discuss.
So, do you have a